Yo, howdy. Welcome to today's episode of Tristan Take Video. I'm coming to you here from the south of Portugal, and over the last week I've been photographing the Human Powered Health Pro Cycling Team Training Camp, and I wanted to take you guys on a bit of a journey of what I've been up to over the last few days as I've hung out with all the guys and the girls from Human Powered Health and take you along for the ride. Yo, howdy, alrighty, welcome to this week's episode of Tristan Take Video. As you can see, I'm no longer in Portimao, Portugal. I'm back in Girona. It's been a few weeks since the training camp, but I thought I'd take this chance to tell you guys about my experience photographing the training camp. The week was an amazing week with the team, really cool to get to know them a little bit better. If you've been following me for a year, you might have seen that I photographed a rally pro cycling training camp last year. That was a series of 4 videos I did. This time around, I was with Human Powered Health, which is actually the same team under a different name, but a different setup this year. We're in Faro, Portugal, and also we had the entire support of the entire team. We had a much bigger group of riders there this time. Last year was slightly stunted due to COVID, but this year we had full gas, team everything. And so without further ado, let's crack on with it and get into the Human Powered Health Pro Cycling Team Training Camp. So as I said, Human Powered Health were once known as Rally Pro Cycling, and they've had a bunch of different names before that. It's still effectively the same team made up of the same staff, but they've got a bunch of new riders. They have riders on their books like Ben King, who's won 2 stages of the Vuelta a España, Joey Roscoff, who's current American champion, Dutch sprinter Arvid Klein. On the women's side, they've got Olympic gold medalist Mika Kroger, they've got Olympic bronze medalist Lily Williams, they've got junior world champion Kaya Schmidt, and a bunch of other riders who are incredibly impressive. They've got a men's pro continental team and they've got a women's world tour team, which is super exciting. 2022 is the first year for the women to be in the world tour, so they're stepping it up there. They're stepping up their game. The training camp was in Faro, Portugal, right down in the south. I've actually never been to Portugal, but I've been meaning to go for a long time. So I flew into Lisbon, a very quick stopover in Lisbon for 1 hour, didn't get to explore it all, and then it was on to my next flight down to Faro. That was where I got picked up, and then we headed across to where we were staying for the week, which is the Riverside Hotel, in a nice little spot on a river, as the name suggests, and get set up and meet everyone there. So one of the big things that goes on a training camp like this at the start of the year is that because you have the entire team there, all the guys and all the girls, it's a really good chance to shoot portraits of all the riders. This is their yearly portrait that's going to be seen by a whole bunch of people around the world, both on the Human Powered Health website and also on any presentations to do with cycling. So it's important to get the portraits right. So that first night I arrived, I spent time setting up my studio in one of the hotel rooms. And I wanted to give the team 2 different looks to shoot. I wanted to go with a high key option and a low key option. Flat light all the way through to ultra dramatic light when I come up here. Get that catch light in my eyes. So once the studio was all set up, it was off to bed for me for a very early start for what was going to be day 1. Day 1 dawned and it was time to head off pre-sunrise to Lusíadas Hospital. The company Lusíadas is actually one of the sponsors of the team, and as a result, the guys got to use the hospital facilities to have things like their blood work taken and their heart checked. It's really important with pro cycling to do these things early in the season to set a baseline for the riders, so the teams can tell if there's anything going wrong throughout the season. Cycling is one of the most difficult sports on your body, so it's really important to pay close attention to how things are operating, especially when the guys are putting themselves through the ringer like they are while they're racing. Once the trip to the hospital was over, the guys came back and a few of them went out for an easy spin. The media team and myself got set up for the week that was coming. This included setting up the studio for the guys who were doing all the video interviews. We also spoke through the week and what was to come in terms of logistics and planning and how we were going to work chasing down 15 riders and photographing them while they were in training. And then that afternoon, it was straight into the first interviews with the riders because the media guys had to interview all the riders and then I had to photograph them all and then all the staff as well. For anyone that has ever watched a bike race, you might have seen a number of staff around with each team. It's actually incredible how many people go into making a pro cycling team happen. There's a whole bunch of people on the media side, there's a whole bunch of people on the sponsor side, and of course we've got the hardest working people, not the riders but the mechanics. Out here all day, all night, having lunch out here, working on the bikes for the boys. The most unappreciated but most highly important job, getting the bikes ready. The mechanics are out there all day, every day, working on the bikes, keeping everything moving. They wash the vehicles down at the end of every day. They make sure that all the riders have everything they need, so the riders have the least amount of stress on their mind possible, so they can perform as best as they possibly can. Once the evening of day one arrived, I started photographing portraits of all the riders. I started with Joey Roscoff.
Cool kit to get to wear.
Yeah.
Make sure to smash the like button and subscribe.
Smash that like button. And then once that was over, I grabbed some dinner, and then it was back to my hotel room to start editing the photos from day one. And then it was off to bed because we had a massive day coming up for day two. Day two dawned, and this was gonna be the first day of photographing the riders actually riding their bikes, which is always fun. So what we did first was we actually photographed one of the riders getting ready. It's important for the team to have photos to use throughout the year of things like sponsor logos and things that make up social media posts to give the general public an insight into what goes on behind the scenes of a training camp. Then they headed outside and they all met up at the team truck, and it was time for them to get ready to go out on their ride. This includes grabbing food and just discussing the day's ride plans and things like that. For this job, I'm working with Diego Sanz Casasnovas. Get you on the vlog.
I will be famous.
You're definitely going to be famous, more famous than last time. I think the last time I made the rally cycling vlog, I had about 800 followers or something like this. Now we're at 8,000, so Diego's got a few more followers to get. He does video work, so if you want to hire him, you know who to go to. So we jumped in the car and we chased down the riders. If you've been following me on Instagram or even on this YouTube channel for a little while, you might have seen that I do quite a bit of photography out the back of the car. It's quite enjoyable because you really get to see the faces of the riders as they're climbing, pain they're going through, or also just the enjoyment they're having. And because you can move at the same speed as the riders, you can get a lot of different options. One of the reasons that the team chooses the south of Portugal as opposed to going to the regular Benidorm or Calpe or those sorts of areas where most of the teams base themselves is that Faro right down in the south is actually really quiet for cars. There's not too many people around. Once you get into the mountains, there's beautiful flowing roads, great climbs to be had, nice scenery around, and it just makes for a good remote location to take an entire team of riders like this. Once we were done shooting in the back of the car, it was off to location 2. All right, running to find another spot at the top of this big mountain, and the riders are going to be in shadow. But we'll see what we can do. And then once we were done with location 2, it was off to location 3. All right, next spot. We're gonna see if we can get them descending down here. Tipping it in, even though it's not Tuesday. And then once we were done with that spot, the last thing the boys had on their plan was a sprint lead-out practice. So what the directors had done is they'd chosen a specific stretch of quite quiet road, and the guys were split into a few different teams. They had to decide what order they were going to rotate in to get their sprinter to the line first, and then the timing at the end of the day was measured on Strava, and whoever won got a little prize. Once the sprint lead-out training was done, it was time to roll back to the hotel where the guys had a shower and then they had some food. Food is super important in terms of recovery. That's one of the big human-powered health stories that they're pushing this year, is how to look after your body. Of course, as the name suggests, human-powered health. Then it was time for me to shoot some more portraits with them, and then I headed off to bed after a big day. That was about a 12-hour day of photography.
Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, and don't forget to share.
Alrighty, just a quick interlude here. I'm just waiting for the next rider to rock up. And in the middle, I'm editing some photos, as you can see in my laptop down there. So I just wanted to give a quick little shout out to Nick Yates. And actually, Alex Nazarovich has asked for it, so Alex can give you a shout out. More important, your little lad, Lenny. All right, cheers boys, back to the show now. So day 3 came along and it was time to jump out and chase the riders a little more for their 5-hour ride that day. Let's get it. Day 3. We rolled out a different way this day, but still headed kind of in the same direction. The day before, we'd headed up a big climb, which is one of the main feature climbs down in that area, and the team was doing a lot of their training based around that climb. So we headed towards that climb in a different direction, took on a bunch of different roads, and ended up in this amazing, big, open-looking gorge thing.
I will go straight.
Yep.
And go behind.
Diego's going to follow them from in front. I'm going to shoot some photos with the long lens, looking all the way down the valley there. This was a good chance for me to grab out my drone and shoot some stills from the drone and also a little bit of video to show you guys here in B-roll. The teams were again broken into 2 different groups for this day because it's just too many riders to have all in one big group on these roads, but that gave us a chance to shoot the riders coming up this big, impressive looking gorge. Once we were done with that gorge, we kept cracking on. As is always the case with photo shoots like this, you're just kind of trying to eat where you can. The riders get fed really well, of course, because they're working so hard, but also it's important to eat yourself. I often forget. And then we actually went and grabbed a coffee at a little cafe stop, which was a nice little way to have an intermission during the middle of the day. This was a really unique cafe. I don't actually remember the town name that it was in, but a very unique looking place. It was very cool inside before we headed off for our afternoon activity. So the afternoon activity that the team had on was actually a race simulation. So the day before they'd done sprint lead out training, but this afternoon they had a race simulation on undulating roads. The race was only about 20 kilometers long, but it was basically every man for himself.
You won the sprint yesterday. What are you thinking for today? How's this race going to go?
Well, we did a recon this morning.
Oh yeah.
So we already know what's coming. I think it's way too heavy for me.
Climbers course.
Yeah, climbers course, and I will just try to hang on for as long as possible and get a good training.
Is there an intermediate sprint for you?
No, I don't know. I think it's just a free for all and just ride.
Just a free for all, just one-on-one versus everyone. Yeah. Have you made any allegiances? Like, have you teamed up with anybody?
I cannot tell. It's
this is private information.
Yeah, that is secret information.
And do we know what the prize is?
We don't know what the price is, but normally it would be like €1,000 or $1,000. So no, I'm kidding. I don't know what the prize is.
Don't know what the prize is. No one knows what the prize is.
No one knows what the prize is, but it's just the honor, maybe.
The honor.
Yeah.
That's a good prize.
As is the case with all good races, there's a breakaway. So the way the breakaway was decided was through a little bit of trivia before they all rolled out. In the breakaway was Ben King, Chad Hager, and Stephen Bassett. What's interesting about this is since the time in filming these videos, Ben King's actually gone on to win the KOM jersey at the Volta Portugal, and Stephen Bassett just came second in the first stage of Volta Andalusia Ruta del Sol. Anyway, long story short, they had that race, and we were frantically chasing in the car trying to get as many photos as possible of the riders going as deep as they possibly could. It's really cool to see in the early part of the year the riders digging deep and feeling like there's so much on the line when there's actually just the kudos of being camp champ for 2022.
How were we? How was that one?
It was brutal.
Oh yeah.
Trying to lead August out, and he just couldn't catch the last three.
What were the tactics after they said you got a 30-second gap because of the trivia at the start?
I mean, there wasn't really a lot of tactics. We just tried to make it like a race, really. Just not go like everybody's pulling a little bit. That's kind of boring, I think. So just some attacking.
Full gas, attack.
So there's no like collusion within your group?
We could probably had a bit more better communication, but yeah, fuck that, it was fun.
Once the guys were done with their race simulation for that afternoon, they rolled back to the hotel and it was time to shoot some photos of the mechanics cleaning the bikes and washing the bikes down. A couple of the sponsors of the team are Park Tool and Finish Line, so it's important to be able to photograph all the sponsor products being used, both for the internal team's communications, for the sponsors, and of course just for the team to speak about the appreciation they have for the support they get from these brands.
Diego's come in and stolen my spot because he likes the light here.
So we spent an hour and a half there at sunset just photographing the mechanics working on the bikes, giving them a wash down, making sure everything's working flawlessly. So once we were finished photographing the mechanics in that beautiful afternoon light, I headed back inside. It was time to shoot some more portraits. By this time I was getting pretty over shooting the portraits, but this is what you have to do in this sort of situation. But I gave my camera to Ben King to shoot a couple of portraits as well. Pro cyclist, pro photographer.
Oh, yeah. Hold on, now let me do the light.
Nailed it. Oh, you're gonna change the light up?
Yeah.
So if you don't know, Ben is actually a really big fan of wildlife photography. He shoots a lot of birds. If you want to check out Ben's bird photography, I'm going to put a link to his Instagram down here so you can have a look. So it was fun to give the camera to him and let him shoot some portraits while I had a little break, and then I went back to photographing the portraits myself. Then once I was done photographing the portraits, it was time to grab some dinner and do some photo editing and then head to bed. One of the reasons I do photo editing every day is to give the team a number of deliverable images for them to use on their social media at the end of each day. If you want to see some of the photos that I've taken and the way that they use them on their social media, check out the Human Powered Health Instagram, which I'll put a link to just down here. You can check that out and see the way the guys are using the photos and the videos produced throughout the camp, and also how they use them throughout the year. So day 4 dawned, and this is when the women arrived. So it was time to do a big team photo with all the riders on Human Powered Health. Because the men's and women's teams are on different race rosters, it's very rare for the entire team to get all together in one group. So at this pre-season training camp, it was a really good chance to get a photo of all the team together in one place. So we did that morning, and that was that ticked off. And then from there, they were going out for a big ride all together. So it was a chance for us to get some riding images of the entire team together. you've got a whole bunch of riders out there on the road like this, and they're all training, it's very difficult as a photographer and a videographer to get them to stop and to do anything. Focus for a pre-season training camp is, as the name suggests, training. So we weren't trying to interrupt the training of the riders by getting them to do anything. We just tracked them with the car, we shot from behind the car, and then we shot out the side of the car. We found a couple of locations on the side of the road to shoot static shots.
You could get it.
All right, so we found this spot, nice little spot there. Gonna shoot this switchback. Got 7200 on for that view there. Let's see what we get. All right, bang that one out onto the next.
So this kind of photography is very, very run and gun. You've got to be super, super quick with our lens changes and getting ready for riders coming. You're kind of scouting locations on the way based on where they're riding. Once we were done with that, we headed back to the hotel for a bit of a break.
Alrighty, so just back from day 4 shooting. We just shot the men and the women all together, and now we're back in Portimao, back at the hotel. I thought I'd just do a quick run through for people who are wondering what gear I use, because that's often a question when it comes to photography, what gear I use to shoot a project like this. What I have with me for this trip is a Canon R5 mirrorless body. This is the new Canon mirrorless system, much faster autofocusing than the old DSLR system. Faster autofocus and quicker frame rates. It's a lighter body as well, so it's a really great sports body. You can use it for portraits, weddings. It's got amazing low light capability. And then along with that, I also have my old Canon 5D3 full frame DSLR, not mirrorless, and that's my backup body. I rarely use it these days, but I have had 2 Canon 5D3s for the last 7 years. So a lot of time shooting with the Canon 5D3, it is a good body, but I find the new R5 is much quicker. It's got a rotatable screen, it's got plenty of megapixels, and does the job really well. On top of that, I use the Sigma 50mm f1.4 art lens. That's my favorite prime lens. And then I have a couple of other prime lenses as well. I shoot the Canon RF 85mm, the Canon RF 35mm, and also the Canon 16mm RF 2.8 STM lens. So all 3 of those lenses, as you can see, they're really nice and small, compact and light prime lenses. The quality is excellent out of them. You get the full use of the Canon R5 body in terms of autofocus and frame rate. Highly recommended that trio of lenses. And then I have a Canon 70-200 as well. The 70-200 is the EF version, so it's not the RF version, so it's not designed specifically for this body, but I use the EF to RF adapter. While that does slow down the frame rate a little bit and it slows down the autofocus a little bit, I find that the lens is still usable, and a new RF version of that same 70-200 is about €2,500, so it's just not money that I'm going to spend at the moment on an RF lens. When I have the EF version, it does pretty much the exact same thing. Very happy to stick with the 70-200 EF version, and eventually I will upgrade to the RF version, but yeah, for the moment now, it's no problem at all. Moving on, I have a couple of filters. The main filter I use is a circular polarizer filter, so I have 2 different sizes there for a couple of different lenses. On top of that, I use a GoPro with a Pro Standard grill mount. The GoPro is the Hero 9 Black. I just use it for some B-roll, for some vlogs, and I've got the mouth mount, and that's actually what I use when I'm filming descents on videos. Obviously that's not applicable to this job, shooting a pro cycling team, but I brought it along just in case if I wanted to shoot anything with the GoPro. So far I haven't used it. The Pro Standard grill mount I use is one that you can slide into your mouth and just bite down on it, and keeps your GoPro pretty stable. I've got a link to those down in the description down below. It is an affiliate link. If you'd like to buy one, I get a small kickback, but yeah, highly recommended that kind of mount. Next up, I have my DJI Mavic mini drone. This is a recent acquisition. I don't really use it too much. I've been using it a little bit for some B-roll footage for the vlogs, and also for taking some still images of the riders on this training camp, but I don't find I use it a heap. I'll probably use it more into the future. It's super small. It packs down super compact, and the remote control is also relatively small, so as a combination, you can get plenty of cool shots, cool footage, and yeah, it's just very easy and portable to bring along on a trip like this to get a different angle for some shots in terms of both video and for photos. I also have a battery pack with 3 batteries in it. The battery pack actually charges all the batteries while it's inside there, and it's a good place to store them outside of the drone, so you're not storing the batteries inside the drone, which actually causes the battery to degrade. And then moving on, I have a little remote flash, which is just the Nissan DI600 flash. I rarely use an external flash these days, so it's just a little add-on just in case I need a flash for something. And then in terms of my computer gear, I have a 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro, and I have an external hard drive which stores all the photos, and I also store them on the hard drive of the computer itself while I'm editing them, and then I have the charger for it as well. So yeah, that's all the gear that I use on a job like this, and now it's back to the vlog. All right.
And so then that afternoon on day 4, it was time to do a little sunset yoga shoot down by the pool. Again, going back to the fact that the team is called Human Powered Health, the aim and the initiative of the team is to promote health and wellness and looking after your body. So that afternoon out by the pool at the Riverside Hotel was a really good chance to photograph Nina doing a bunch of yoga, and also Pierre-Andre using the Hyperice gun, which is another one of the sponsors of the team. That's a massage gun for his legs. So yeah, did that out by the pool at sunset, then back inside to shoot yet more portraits, and then off to bed. Day 5 dawned and it was time to photograph just the ladies by themselves. The men were heading home today, and this was our chance to photograph just the women out training. One of the things with pro cycling training camps like this, and especially in the pre-season, is it's super important for the riders to get to know each other and also get to know their directors really, really well, so that they can communicate clearly throughout racing and also just throughout the season in general. Riders come from all different backgrounds. There's language barriers, there's opinion differences, there's experience level differences. So it's important for the riders to get to know each other, learn to communicate, so they can race to the best of their ability. Once the ladies were finished getting ready, they rolled out and we chased them down. We headed up to our first location, which was up the top of a big climb. Let's go and have a look at this weird place while we're waiting for this shot.
Diego sees something he likes.
That makes for a good gram right there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good gram. So we left this morning, we rolled out, went past the riders, came up this climb, and now we're waiting for them to come up to us, but we've kind of overshot them by quite a long way, so we got a little while of waiting around. Checking out the local cafes around here.
Only Monchique tractor.
This is only horse and carts, and only Monchique tractors. Oh, only V-dubs. Renault 4 litres. Would this make a good vlogging camera?
No, good selfie camera, you know.
A good selfie camera. File size might be a bit big for vlogs.
Yeah, totally crazy.
Okay, we'll stick with the iPhone.
And then eventually when the ladies rolled past, we photographed them coming past, and then they kept going. They were doing a big climb today, about 40 minutes, all the way up to the top of this lookout point. They weren't technically racing each other, but they were doing a very hard effort. They were told that they need to do a hard effort from bottom all the way to the top. So they did that, and then they got to the top, and it was quite cold up there actually.
Hill climb out the way, freezing up here. It's about 6 degrees up here, so they've all rugged up, and now they're heading back down and gonna go and find somewhere warmer to ride and do the rest of their ride now.
Once they were done with the rest of their training for that day, they headed back to the hotel. We headed back to the hotel as well. And again, broken record, shot some more portraits, then edited some more photos. And then it was off to bed for the end of that day. So then day 6 dawned, and by this stage, as you can see, it gets a bit like Groundhog Day. You're kind of getting up and doing the same thing every day, but it's really important to be there for this much time so you can create as much pre-season content as possible. The first thing we did on day 6 was we photographed Lily Williams getting ready. That was for Portimao, which is their sponsor for the kit. And then the girls congregated in the car park, and it was time for them to get ready for their ride. So the girls rolled out for their ride that day. We headed off. We found a location 1.
Alrighty, on to day 6. I think we're on to day 6 now. Just standing in a nice little yellow field. Gonna take some shots looking down this road and feature these yellow flowers. And that backdrop back there, got the 7200 on, the faithful 7200. Got some beautiful weather. Nice day for us. Did you get the shot?
Yeah.
Diego's always nailing the shot, forever nailing the video.
As you can see, we had perfect weather for the entire week, which is what you'd hope for down in the south of Portugal. We jumped over to location 2.
Just found this nice little bit of road that flows down there. Nice bit of green, nice bit of blue. Got the polarizer on the lens there. The polarizer just takes some of the harshness out of the light.
It's pretty cool to see you rocking both right there.
The double camera.
Yeah.
Banged that one out of the park.
Sure did.
And then we got to location 3.
Just found a switchback, one of the first switchbacks in a while. Got the wide angle lens on, I'm running the 16mm just so I can get the whole corner. I'm gonna see if I can use some of this foliage here to just create a nice little vignette for the road and the riders. So we'll see what we end up with.
And then we jumped in the back of the car and photographed some close-ups of the girls, of their faces, same as the guys that we'd done earlier in the week. So we photographed them behind the car, and then they started doing some 10-minute swap-offs where basically they were doing 10 minutes rotating on the front, which I didn't film any of, but I did photograph it. It's really cool to see the way the women's team are getting really drilled in. They're at the World Tour level now, so they're at the top level of the sport, so it's important that they really focus on their communication, on their riding style, on understanding each other, and on getting the best performance out of them that they possibly can. So once we were done done photographing that day, we went and grabbed some lunch, which was actually really nice because usually on training camps, you don't get a chance to sit down and have a hot meal. So having a hot meal was very, very welcome. And then once we were done with that, we headed back to the hotel for sunset, and I flew my drone around a little bit and had a look at the view around the hotel. And then I think you probably know what's coming next. I then went and photographed some more portraits of the riders, and then I headed off to bed for the end of day 6. And that brings us up to our final day, day number 7. We ended the trip in the same way we started it. We got up for sunrise. We headed off to the hospital because the ladies were doing their testing that day. Photographed that with the ladies, and then it was time for them to grab some breakfast. And then once they were done with the hospital, they headed back to the hotel, and they were actually on an easy day that day. So they rolled down to a cafe not too far from the hotel. We photographed the girls just having their easy day, their rest day. Again, it's really nice to be able to show behind the scenes of what goes on with a pro cycling team training camp. It's not all just going full gas. They did actually get a chance to sit down and have a coffee. And then we headed back via this beautiful port back to the hotel. It was time to pack up because it was the final day for us. My job was over. Time to wrap up the training camp from the media side. And then I headed off that next morning on a flight back to Girona. So that gives you guys a little insight into my week with human powered health. I hope you enjoyed watching this insight, and I hope it gives you a little bit more of an insight to my job as a professional photographer, what I do when I'm running around like a madman with a couple of cameras dangling off my arms. I want to say a massive thank you to Human Powered Health for having me along on this training camp. It was lots and lots of fun as always. It's good fun hanging out with the guys, and I get to see a lot of them around here in Girona as well because a bunch of them live here. As I said before, since the time of filming, the guys have actually done their first races of the year and gone really, really well. Amazing to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing how they go this year. You guys should jump over, give them a follow on Instagram, and keep an eye out for those Human Powered Health jerseys in the pro peloton when you're watching races. For the moment, it's time for me to head out and do some of my own bike riding. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, and if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe because I will give you more insights behind the scenes with pro cyclists throughout this year. Coming next, I have a video about a new bicycle and a new bicycle sponsor, so stay tuned for that, and I'll chat to you guys all very, very soon. Right, adeu.